Wish, 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 wish. Wish, 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 wish. I'm so sick of the word wish. So I saw Wonder Woman 1984 as it premiered on HBO Max yesterday, Christmas Day. Hope everyone was safe and so forth. And sat down for 2.5 hours of what I thought was going to be entertaining, endearing, fun, mindless superhero entertainment. And then after the movie ended and I continued on with my Christmas Day, I began revisiting it from time to time, or aspects of the storytelling or plot elements, and began thinking like, not so much, and then went to bed and woke up this morning with a lot of racing thoughts and ideas surrounding aspects of the film that honestly I could probably write and construct a whole series of video essays about things I found to be interesting. I don't know, sexual politics, themes of empowerment, racial coding and shorthand in fictional worlds. So I might save those for a later date, because I want to keep this as truncated as possible while probably having a couple spoilers here and there. But let's just focus on the movie overall. It's fine. Wonder Woman 1984 is a perfectly functional, Midland satisfactory superhero experience. I still prefer the first one way more than this, and I'll get into a little bit about how the sequel kind of backpedals some thematic elements from the first movie, but overall it's okay. It's shot very well. There are some beats and some moments in the story that do work for me. Overall, everyone performance-wise is doing a great job. Gal Gadot seems very relaxed now in this role. It seems to kind of fit her pretty well, and for her level of emoting and, performance, it's fine. This character fits her fine. Chris Pine still has great chemistry with her. Kristen Wiig, actually, I felt was one of the standouts in the performance category of this movie as Barbara/Cheetah. I just kind of wish they didn't saddle her with a supervillain trope that I've been noticing quite a bit throughout movies throughout the years. And Pedro Pascal, his performance is interesting. I don't know, maybe just having to spend so much time behind the Mandalorian mask and limit his emoting. Maybe he saw 1984 as sort of this outlet to be like, I'm going to be as big as I want. At no point did I feel a level of real intimidation from his character of Maxwell Lord. He kind of felt like a supervillain version of Gil from The Simpsons for me.
How many can I put you down for? A lot? Please say a lot. I need this.
It's a choice, and so I'll back him up on that, I guess. The overall 80s aesthetic of this movie, it's okay. It's a very stereotypical representation of what the 80s were, kind of like the way Stranger Things or a lot of movies that delve into this particular time and place chronicle or represent the 80s, the big fashion elbow pads or shoulder pads, or the mall, of course. I got immediate Commando vibes watching that modern action sequence with Wonder Woman in the mall. So there are things to enjoy here. There are moments and character beats, and overall, if you can let go of certain storytelling elements that I clearly can't, you'll have a better time with this movie than I overall did. That being said, there are some things that seriously detract from this experience the more I think about it, and the big blaring one that I can't ignore is the central MacGuffin that is used in this movie. And this is where I'm going to get into spoilers, because this MacGuffin touches upon pretty much every character beat or every kind of point in the plot. Wonder Woman 1984's plot is mainly driven by a magical MacGuffin that is basically a dream stone or wish stone. Essentially, it grants whoever possesses the stone their deepest desires or whatever they wish for, but it's sort of a monkey's paw situation where it'll grant the wish, but take away something from the user in return. In the case of Diana, she wishes to be reunited with her long-lost love, Steve Trevor. He comes back, his spirit inhabits the body of a random dude, and they get back together, but it's costing her her strength, because reuniting with her lost love costs her her strength and powers. It's metaphorical, I'm sure. This certain portion does raise a couple flags, because basically this is just an excuse, because Diana has had a 70-year case of the lonelies. To have her boyfriend back in another dude's body gives her a chance to have physical intimacy with him again while he's inhabiting another dude's body, whose existence and whose mind is, for the moment, tabled. Yikes. In the case of Kristen Wiig's character, Barbara Minerva, she works with Diana at the Natural History Museum, and isn't really that great at her job to begin with. Like, Diana ends up doing a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of deciphering what the stone is or what these artifacts are. So she's very insecure in her role. She's very timid, very soft-spoken, awkward, has glasses to hammer it home further, because don't you just love this trope in the superhero movies when you have an awkward, timid, unappreciated, glasses-wearing dork who eventually takes a sinister turn. Can't imagine where else I've seen this. When she actually gets into cheetah mode, or I shouldn't say cheetah mode, when she gets into her villainous mindset, because the cheetah mode full-on is kind of laughable. When her performance and her, like, cold stare at people sometimes and the intimidation factor, it works. I like Kristen Wiig when she takes on a more serious type of role, when she's not relegated to being kind of a comic relief or being played up mainly in a comedy. Like, she can do dramatic stuff, and I'm glad she's here, because any enjoyment I did get was from her actually kind of really getting into this character a little bit more grounded than what Pedro Pascal's doing. So cool. I just wish they gave her a better character to work with other than this trotted out trope of the awkward, shy person suddenly gets power and immediately starts abusing it. She's imbued with power from this stone as well, as is Max Lord. He actually makes himself the living embodiment of this wishing stone, so he goes around shaking people's hands and asking them what they would wish for, but actually kind of coaxing them into wishing for stuff that he actually wants, which takes him to making his oil company kind of become a big global competitor, to him traveling to the Saudi desert, or the parallel of the Saudi desert, to talk with an oil baron. And like I said, that's a whole other can of worms that I'll discuss at a later time. To him just wanting total global dominion and basically almost starting World War III by materializing a bunch of nukes. So this wishing stone kind of has carte blanche to do whatever the plot demands. It can bring back dead loved ones, it can turn you into a more animalistic or super-powered person, it can turn you into a living genie without the bottle. And that's why it kind of bugs me, because overall, when you have a MacGuffin this overpowered that really serves as a multi-purpose tool for just getting bizarre visuals and action sequences into the film, but also is an easy deus ex machina in the end. I felt that kind of detracted from the intent of the first Wonder Woman movie. In the first Wonder Woman movie, it's a lot about Diana kind of realizing that the world isn't all black or all white, that there are shades of gray, that there are complexities in the human condition, because at first she sets out to destroy the embodiment of war and strife in humanity, which is Ares, the god of war, which led to a horrible CGI third act fight, and this movie's got that. But at least there, the message was clear. Diana comes to realize, like, just because she defeats the god of war doesn't mean war is done with, because war and distrust and negativity abounds in humanity as a whole. We're just that complicated. As much as we're capable of doing good, we're just equally as capable of doing evil. And she has to come to terms with the fact that there are degrees of that she has to balance out for herself and determine, like, how do I serve humanity overall, knowing that there are these degrees. I like that theme in the first movie, that realization she comes to. This movie, at the very end, ultimately, the whole issue is resolved because she appeals to the better nature of humanity as a whole via satellites and TVs, and basically compels all of the world to rescind their wishes that they made on this wishing stone. And that makes everything a-okay. Kind of a big backpedal from coming to realize, like, hey, guess what? What some people deem as good intentioned or a good wish might not be that for a whole other group of people. And there are some very broad stereotypes that play into that throughout this movie. Oh boy. But it felt way too clean. It felt way too simple. For a movie that's going into 2.5 hours, I don't feel like that was enough to propel 2.5 hours. It ends up being kind of a disservice to developing characters like Max Lord and Cheetah, because they just go to the old, well, Max Lord is the wishing stone now and he's getting internally corrupted, and so that'll drive his desperation. Cool, you could have made Max Lord compelling without the wishing stone. Barbara becomes more animalistic and hilariously CGI in the third act. I hate to say this, but the CGI in Cats is a lot better than Cheetah in this movie. But at the same time, you could have been able to do that in a way that's a little bit more, I don't know, a little more thought-provoking, or even a little bit more closer tied to her relationship with Diana than what we got. For example, Max Lord in the comics is already a metahuman of some kind. He has, depending on which version you go with, he has the ability, he's telepathic, he can kind of sort of be telepathic. He influences the darker impulses of the people around him, like psychologically just pushes them to their worst impulses. That in and of itself could be a very interesting power to explore in this medium. Maybe have him start off like he's this huckster, basically, at the start of the movie. He's this guy who has a fledgling oil drilling company, and maybe he's using his power. It's a low-level power. He uses it slightly to try and influence his investors and to keep himself afloat, and he's looking for a power boost. Maybe there's another type of MacGuffin or gimmick that boosts his power considerably that he already has. Maybe that MacGuffin also affects Barbara, and she ends up getting enhanced powers and slowly starts to kind of become a little bit more animalistic as the movie continues, until she is in her full cheetah form. Barbara has maybe a more competitive side when it comes to her friendship with Diana. Maybe we get a little bit deeper into the envy behind Barbara and how much she feels Diana has everything easy, and how she wants to be as powerful, as confident, and as superior as she feels Diana is. And maybe that just further fuels the rivalry when she finds out that this transformation that she first feels is a blessing is coming at a cost, as she's slowly losing her humanity and becoming more animalistic. That could drive her to further hate Diana. Maybe Maxwell Lord, now that he has his power boost, is like, now I can do all the things I ever wanted, which essentially is what he tries to do here in the movie, but it's kind of hilarious that he has to do a roundabout way of doing it by making people ask him for wishes, and he's basically being like, wouldn't you wish for this, or wouldn't you wish for this? Shake my hand. Like, that got kind of ridiculous pretty fast. There's even one point where, like, his car's boxed in by people in the streets, and he looks to his driver, shakes the driver's hand. He's like, wouldn't you wish that the traffic was just so clear today? And I kind of laughed at that. How we'd address the Steve issue, because I know that's going to be something that a lot of people talk about is, well, what do we do with Steve? Why not make him a manifestation of something going on with Diana psychologically? Since we have this character, Max Lord, who can push people psychologically and mess with their emotions and their mindsets, why not have him, tap into that with Diana a little bit? Make her manifest this this version of Steve that kind of haunts her or kind of follows her around, and it's, you know, associated a little bit with her guilt about him dying or her search for closure on that relationship in a way. Because the way it stands right now, Steve does stuff in the movie, like he's involved, but ultimately it's not to any significant effect until the point where he has to go away again. Until he and Diana have their moment of like, you have to let me go in order to be who you really are. You can still have that, except without the weird magical stuff that implies that Diana and Steve basically use this rando's body for physical intimacy. Just saying. And I know the world of Wonder Woman is filled with magical MacGuffins and gods and these grander ideas. But they don't always have to be that. They can be smaller stories. Not every Wonder Woman story has to surround a global meltdown courtesy of magic wish stones. Why not just have Cheetah be maybe the sole antagonist, perhaps? Why not just have it be this rivalry and honestly hit them in a more colorful setting? The finale with the Cheetah Wonder Woman fight is in a very clouded, very grayish type of setting. It's basically this really scummy grotto that this major satellite is stationed on. And I don't know, that doesn't serve the visual idea of Cheetah well, even though the CGI was pretty funny. Why not have Cheetah in the jungle fighting Wonder Woman on the plains of the Serengeti, in the Amazon, wherever, just somewhere more lush or vibrant or colorful? Like I said, there's things to like. All the performances are fairly solid. The aesthetic of the 80s, even though it is a hyped up kind of caricature of what that time period actually was, it serves its nostalgic drive well enough. Could have done with more 80s music, honestly. And there is a mid-credit scene that put a genuine smile on my face. Like, this mid-credit scene almost made up for the last act being so flimsy. It functions perfectly fine, but I feel lacks in a lot of the breadth of storytelling or soul that the first movie was able to tap into. And all this talk about a DC superhero and how they ebb and flow with the times around them got me thinking. It's about time I started talking about another character from the DC pantheon who had their own weird journey over several years.